didn't realize it. He thought he'd walled himself in. Ranked is, of course, out. We have to check in on what's happening on the ranked, and we have to check in with the number 2 seed up against Boogly. That's right, the Viper versus Leenock. Let's slap this one up on the screens, and look at this. Hill and Dale. Although this is like mini hill. No? Like, it looks very tiny, doesn't it, actually, looking at this Hill and Dale generation. I think this might be the first Hill and Dale I've cast since they tweaked the generations to tighten the formation of resources. So maybe this is more indicative of new Hill and Dales, because I don't feel like I used to see these ones. I kind of like it, though. Like, there's still some turtley potential, but it's not literally the be-all, end-all if this is the new standardized style. Like, there are ways you can be forced into early aggression on your high ground. And unless you're willing to invest very, very early on in defending yourself there, like, you will be exposed. So, kind of like that. And this one is going to be the English versus French, which is also an interesting kind of matchup here. Not something we'd see too frequently on Hill and Dale. In fact, if I was to think French, Hill and Dale, the only one I can think is Robbie G. Outside that, when we look at the Viper's choice, we have seen some success with the English. I think really the most notable performance I've seen out of an English player in the last few months, the most incredible one was probably Lucifron showing up against, I believe it was Casva in the qualifier for N4C, where he failed an early game rush and managed to bounce back for an ultra late timing against the HRE. It was a phenomenal game. It's on the channel if you haven't seen it already. But I'm kind of intrigued to see what Viper's opening is going to be, because the English have changed a lot now. At least in their initial choice, in that they actually have a choice. One of the choices they can now make in the early game is to drop the insta-racks and push the man-at-arms. But considering Viper already has the mill, lumber camp, and farms being plopped down, I don't think we're going to see that. For those who haven't seen that play, it's a pretty potent play if you do it straight away, because your timings are usually you arrive in your opponent's goal line at like 1.5, 2 minutes. And it's surprisingly effective against a civ like the French, because of course they're very gold hungry in the early game, as they want to be using Royal Knights. But at the time of recording, as we already highlighted at the beginning, people are really excited about Viper. It looks like he's been hard on the grind, and he's already getting some payoff from it as he's second on the rank ladders. Leenock, not too far behind him, though. A respectable 9th at this point. And the interesting part is, like, Viper, he's only played 18 games, and he has the highest win rate. It's actually impressive. There are some people who have not dropped any games yet. So let's see if he's going to drop this one. Because before this match, Viper has not lost anything. He's on fire. So farm's starting to come out, and we are seeing that formation. This was popularized by Vortex. We saw this in Golden League. I gave an astute analysis on exactly why it was that way. We won't go into any details, otherwise I'll be fired. But the kind of give and take of why you do this is it's to do with the fact that when you go onto the farms with villages, they don't actually gather the entire crop. They gather part of it. And it means that, as you can see by the way they're gathering, like, it's a short distance with this formation next to the TC for them on the corners as compared to just making a complete surrounding on the mill. So it is slightly more efficient. I believe someone actually done some tests on this. Oh, now I feel bad. I usually give shout-outs, but I can't remember their name off the top of my head. The test that someone done was between the 4.5 to 12.5 minute mark. Over 8 minutes, they assessed the gathering rates of both the standardized mill formation with farms and then this formation with farms. And I believe they came back with an 8 additional food gathered over 8 minutes by, I think it was maybe 8 farms or 6 farms. And it doesn't sound like much. It really isn't much. But it's still more efficient. So it's a fair point why you would do it. I also think it's kind of beneficial from a early raid perspective, because you do keep your villages more condensed close to the TC. So in the event that you get dove by French Knights, you haven't got someone out here on the western side of the farmlands where they might get chased down by a French Knight. So meantime, tech up's now coming out. School of Cavalry dropped interestingly far away from the primary base. Usually we just see this actually dropped right next to the TC. Kind of curious to know what the thought process was from Leenock. I imagine it's because he has his food gathering out here, as opposed to next to his TC, because he went to the deer straight away. So it's just logical and more efficient to just use the villages over in this area, as opposed to running them back to the primary. In the meantime, Viper is going to rush up with 4 villagers working the council hall. No, just change up there. It's kind of weird, actually. I felt like a lot of people were expecting a switch up into the Abbey of Kings, with it getting buffed and also the Man-at-Arms meta that could have potentially been coming out. But it just hasn't played out that way. Like, it doesn't seem to be to your advantage compared to a Council Hall. I've highlighted this plenty of times, but I think the Abbey of Kings is just too finicky to use efficiently. The only time it's actually useful is when you're on the defensive. And the issue with that concept is the English aren't meant to be a defensive civ. They actually don't thrive on defense at all. They're very much an aggressive civ. And it's easy to kind of mix that up when you consider things like the network of castles. Because the network of castles gives you an attack speed buffer when someone triggers it near your base or near your outpost. People get this idea of like, oh, like I'm better on the defense. But as we very quickly identified within about a month before releasing, network of castles is actually a very good aggressive tool for Lombos just by building an outpost next to your opponent's base. Yeah, even with the MAA rush, like Abbey of Kings just doesn't make sense. I think the change I was hoping that we'd see out of Abbey of Kings is that it would become a targeted ability somewhere on the map, that it would be like you create a small heal zone. Similar to what the Campfire does, and that would function with the same behavior where if you're being attacked, you can't heal. And let's say it's a cooldown of a minute and you heal for 6 to 8, maybe even 10 seconds, depending on the heal rate. I kind of like that idea because it's an active, involved element of gameplay versus what the current Abbey of Kings is, which is a I'm going to AFK in base and do nothing, which I just don't like tools that enable that too much because, you know, I don't like the idea of someone being rewarded for surviving versus being rewarded for playing. Right? Play to win, don't play to survive. And although some civs do have to play more defensive depending on the civ matchup, it just feels like Abbey of Kings by default is you forfeiting a matchup regardless of whether you're the tempo aggressor or not. So, Knight's starting to come out. Lino is ramping up for that timing. Spears are in position, though. Viper, remember, because he's the English, you start off with hardened spearmen, don't even have to upgrade them. The archers are going to be a frustration, but remember, the Longbowmen can reach in and easily snipe out those archers. So you do need plenty in the field if you actually want to hold back against that. And the scout being target, interesting choice here. Villagers are a little bit exposed. Need to be careful. Lino could have wrapped onto that, actually. He could have insta-sniped them down. Instead, not able to do so. And the reason he would have been able to insta-snipe them down is this. Remember, the blacksmith. Once you get the blacksmith down, you get the Tech 1 melee. Your initial strike of the lance does 30 damage, and your follow-up will do 20 damage to the sword, which is enough to kill a 50 health unit, which is exactly what these bad boys and girls are. So kind of surprised he didn't go for that. Maybe he felt he was a little bit too close to get the charge animation out in time, which would have made it a pointless strike in that would have cost you a lot of health against spears. But he's going to run out of opportunities. You can see Viper now beginning to wall himself in. Is going to make this a lot more problematic for Lino to gain access. So Lee will need a backup plan. He could try to ramp up to double, maybe in triple archery range. But in the time you're going to be doing that, there's a lot of freedom for Viper to expand his eco. And once he pads himself in the farmlands, with the safety on the flanks, it means his economy is going to be unharassed. And I feel like that brings him to a timing around the 15-20 minute mark, where his eco will outboom Leenox, because Leenox will start to dry up on these central deposits on the high ground. And once that happens, you have to go into risky territory. She'll stay for the moment. These deer are done with though, right? So there's only a few sheep remaining. This was a very ambitious play, by the way. Remember that the bug is still in the game. You can find your villagers bugged when they shift from deer to sheep. So Leenox, whether he was like consciously registering it or not, or just looking for the extra bit of efficiency, he was playing with fire there, and he could have easily been burnt. Right in. Nice move there. We'll lose one of the knights for his trouble. Remember, the English town centers have double the arrow fire, so very problematic when you have to dive them like that as the French. In fact, it's probably the only matchup where you don't feel comfortable as a French player going under the CC. Just because once they garrison, double pepper fire is just way too dominant. So I've noticed some people curious about the bug. The bug is to do with when you are on deer gathering with the villagers and you switch to sheep, your villagers will gather up to the maximum capacity, but they'll never drop off. They'll just idle there with the animation still running. So you won't even notice that they are, unless you click on them and see they're holding 10 food and doing nothing else. But look at this out, Leenox. He's ticking up. He stopped at 2 knights, and that means Viper's on the clock, and Viper is in. Denying a lot of equity as well. This is problematic. Leenox not much in the reserves in terms of gold. We'll need the switcheroo and the switch up quick. Outpost on the front line. Viper just starting to box his opponent in. And we'll look to wrap around and deny this district. So no gold gathering right now. And no reserve gold that's going to be easily accessible. Not if the outpost goes up like this. More troops being pulled to the front by Viper in the meantime. And the Snake was pop cap. That was slowing him down, but that has now been fixed. And he needs to go soon. Question is, where is the ram tech? Has been researched. Can get into the rams if he wants to. Just waiting on the wood right now. Floating 220. As he wraps around the other side. If he gets rid of the racks, I feel like Lennox in a lot of trouble. And Lennox already in trouble. Look at this. The wood line is exposed. The scout. Beautiful play out of Viper. He keeps vision in the base. And it's going to be hard for the Knight to snipe this one out. If he shifts the scout away quick enough, he can bait him towards the spears. But right now, Viper is not reacting. Second scout in here makes it even more problematic for Lennox. But not if Viper dives underneath the TC and gives it over for free. Meanwhile, no gathering on the food. So Viper, he strikes beautifully. This was actually perfectly done. Lennox, remember the weakness of going for any type of transition, whether it's military type, whether it's economical type, like going into farms, or a tech up. It's an investment that isn't instantly going to pay off. You have to build up to the advantages of it. And what's just happened here is Lennox has spent 1,800 resources to invite Viper into his base. The timing just didn't add up. And it's why it's so problematic now. Like, he might get 1 or 2 man-at-arms out, but with enough longbowmen, that's just not going to cut it. And that's why he needs to get on the food. And that's why he rushes across on the berries while Viper is distracted in the north, because if there's one weakness to the English early aggression, it's the fact that these slow, methodical units cannot go through the TC, so they have to wrap wide in a circular motion around. Let's try out the gold as well. Lennox looking to hit those times. Viper is still not scaling, though. You can see he's pushing as much military force as possible, even now going into the man-at-arms. Now, these early man-at-arms are not going to really compare to the Castle Age man-at-arms, but at least a front line to hold your opponent at bay. And even a proxy base. I love this out of Viper. This is so much more committed. If you're going to go in for the feudal play, you have to do everything you can to expand upon it. This is something that players have got phenomenally good at doing. Ever since the board play started to emerge, we've seen it more and more. Proxy bases, this whole idea of additional value. If I pull villages to the front, can they gather resource here? Can they build up a proxy base? Do I get benefits out of that? Yes, it might be a risky investment. I could lose 150 resources, but also by building a forward base like this, I could even more likely win the game. And it means he's going to be able to match the number, even if he can't match the quality. In the meantime, Ram slowly getting for those buildings. Problematic as well. Lennox, oh no, he's about to get pop-capped. That's why the Rams fixated on the houses. This is going to sting him, especially if he continues on the additional house here. And that means that Viper, like, this is how you get the cheap Zerg factor, right? This is how you outmass your opponent. You just block him away from actually being able to even produce units. And he will repair it. Nice clutch save there. Lennox identifies exactly what Viper's going for. Shift out towards the outpost, and now the peppering comes into the man-at-arms, but damage being heavily reduced here. Down to just 2 per shot. Now the wood line. Lennox, he gets some breathing room. This was crucial. The fact that this didn't get spotted out is big. It allows him to recoup. He needs to actually get additional wood to be able to afford additional military production buildings and also get a ranged battalion to this fight. Outpost crawling in the meantime from Viper. He may have lost the ram on the north side, but he's getting to a strong point here on the south. And Lennox, his response goes straight into his opponent's base, try and punish him. Viper could easily go TC boom at this rate. With 4 people working on the stone, he's going to gather amply required quantity. The only issue is it will leave his production line a bit thin, and these man-at-arms are already starting to clump. And the pullback. So Lennox win condition, with the way he's playing right now, like, he's looking a lot later than Viper, I think. Viper hasn't exactly extracted the full value, shutting his opponent out. Had he kept him off the wood, Viper would have starved him out at the beginning of Castle. But you can see he's starting to scale now. He's starting to recover. And it means if Viper wants to win this, he either needs to fall back for a Castle of his own, or he now needs to double down and go in with the Rams. And it looks like it's going to be the double down. And I love this. It's playing to win. It's what I'm all about. And the Lombo's even going to get freebies. And eco-wise, they're even, which is bad for the French. Remember that they produce villages quicker. They should be ahead of the English. And also moving out into the woodline as well. Only 1 Lombo, but it distracts the Knights. In the meantime, he moves deeper into the base. So far, these man-at-arms have done nothing. Like, Lennox, he missed his opportunity. He could have shut down Viper's economy, but instead he reacts to the aggression on the eastern front. identifying that it's been revealed, he needs to actually now guard it. The issue with this, though, is it means you're now applying no pressure to Viper's base. You also don't know what he's doing. When you look at the vision, everything is now defensive. And also, Lenok, we highlighted this before, as he gets rid of the initial food sources, he has to move out into dangerous territory. And although his berry bush is a good start, the next stop is going to be at the front of his base, whether it's deer or berries. And that's where Viper will intercept him. And the raid. The massacre at the back here. It's a lot of damage done. No textile still for Lenok. And this is all because he's shifting back and forth, reacting a little bit over-calibrated here, trying to get the goal as best he can. But look at this. No! No, the wall! Oh, no! Lenok didn't realize it. He thought he'd walled himself in. The keep was not enclosed. And that is going to be a massacre. So much damage done to the village account already. Man-at-Arms just bodying this line here. There is nowhere that is safe, and he needs to gather all the resources he can. Look at his gold right now, down to 50. Food about to deplete. This is really all he's got. He's got 1 or 2 berry bushes left underneath his TC, and in the meantime, being pressed on the south side. Lombo count increasing to critical mass. This is looking dire for Lenok. And you can see the eco damage now 10 up. Viper with the economical lead and still able to push more troops while slowly scaling towards Castle. And make no mistake, folks, he's going to keep that balance. Viper up at 35 military units and only 12 in the field for Lenok. It's not looking good. And the Lombo's on their way, and he's in no man's land. Remember, he still hasn't walled this. He still hasn't realized. Wall the damn wall! Oh. Lenok. I think this is about to turn into a race to 20 villages. There's so much exposed economy here, and here they come. Lombo starts to target in. Hone in upon Lenok, force him away for the moment. Man-at-Arms the wraparound, but a backup coming out from Viper. And Viper, remember, he's underway. He's teching up, and it is going to be the King's Palace. His economical lead is about to extend. What a way for him to play this. I mean, Viper, it's just so much credit to him. A lot of players would have backed off 2-3 minutes ago. They would have felt they missed their timing. They would have seen their opponent getting the initial income at the beginning of Castle, and they would have said it was a fail. The experiment didn't work. Fall back. Instead, Viper, with this double down of racks on the front line, has ensured that he kept tempo aggression and prevented Lenok from booming. Now, the only boom that's occurring here is the internal implosion of Lenok. As with limited resources at his disposal, nowhere for him to access, he's about to starve. The tech advantage is now gone. He has a static force of man-at-arms that cannot react on both fronts quick enough. He doesn't have any wood gathering. His food is quickly being drained, and he has 1 gold vein with 3k left in it. Now, the gold can save him for a while, but the wood and food is what's going to kill him. And now the stables as well. So Viper can look to raid even deeper. Viper's so quick on this. His man-at-arms are getting juiced up. They're so much stronger now. He can get the armor-clad next, and that stage, the man-at-arms and the French just do not compare. Lombo's backstep in the meantime. Veteran Lombo's, in fact, up to 10 damage, which means they're doing 4 post-shot to the MAA. And the MAA are going to get massacred. Forced to run away. The attack speed buff are just too good. Lenok, he makes the knee-jerk reaction choice to go towards his opponent's base far too late, though. And he will not be able to beat Viper to the punchline. And Viper, also already looking to wall himself in, is going to deny any opportunity for Lenok to strike back at the economy of the English. And still this. It's a lesson in walling, folks. This is the reason. So much of this is caused by this. Lenok, because he never got the wall up here, because he never fully enclosed here, Viper's had freedom of rotation. He's been able to go in and out wherever he chooses. He's shaking it all about. And Lenok, the only thing he can do right now is shake his head. If he cannot get a wall or play, he's pretty much done here. So many villages out in no man's land. And nowhere quick for them to run. The formation shuffle's not going to help him. Monk's going to be sniped out. No cheeky wall here. Viper just continues to pursue. In the meantime, addressing in his own base as it looks like the raid's now coming in, but Lenok slowed down so much by the MAA. And this, I mean, this is looking like a big L for Big Lee. Name starts with an L, but he wasn't hoping this game would end with one. Villagers keeping it repaired, barely keeping it out of raise range. Maybe you eventually breach this, but by the time you do, what is the damage? Because Lenok right now, his entire economy is flatlining. He cannot get on the goal line to the south. He cannot use the north. He's got no food, no wood, nothing. And even with this breach, the damage is going to be superfluous. It's going to be superficial, in fact. He'll kill a few troops, a few villagers, but after that, what happens next? Because you will not be able to rebuild. And that's why he rushes on the outposts. Fully forced to do so. The other outposts, however, upgraded. There's still MAAs being produced on the front line from the double racks. Troops waiting around the back. The double ram now comes out. Viper with all the answers here. His timing's just a little bit too quickly for Lenok to be able to react to everything. Barely any man-at-arms left. Barely any military force overall on the map left. And the Royal Guard here going to be forced back away because the Rams are coming in. But I think Lenok knows where this one's going. With so many longbowmen, there's no clear answer. He went for a full melee battalion, and it made sense with the tech-up advantage. But the moment that tech-up advantage disappeared, he disappeared with it. He is shriveled up into nothing, and the Snake will keep his 100% win rate alive. Whereas Lenok will be dead. Moment of silence for the lead that was. This was not the dominant force we're used to seeing on one side, but definitely the dominance we were expecting from the other. The AoE go looks exactly like it. I mean, the English, they've been looking a bit flimsy unless you're willing to go for that cheeky MAA play early on, but he understood it wasn't just about that. Hits perfect timings, and on a defensive map like Hill and Dale, still finds a way to pummel the French player into the ground. Beautifully done.